Present.
Senator Boner,
Here.
Senator Case,
Present.
Senator Nethercott, Senator Scott,
Here.
Representative Blackburn, Representative Clausen, Representative Duncan, Representative Ayer, Representative Greer,
Here.
Representative McGuire, Representative Roscoe, Representative Yin,
Here.
Co-Chairman Wanitzer, Chairman Driscoll. One excused.
Very good. I think, and I can't get my agenda, I don't have it packaged as a summary from staff to start with. Is that where we're at? We'll start with that, Michael. We'll give you the floor and.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Michael Swank. I'm staff with the Legislative Service Office. My understanding is we just want to screen. Hello?
There we go.
Sorry about that. Michael Swank, Legislative Service Office. My understanding is the committee wanted to start with getting a quick update on what has occurred since December 14th. After the December 14th meeting, LSO provided a memo to the remaining of the rest of the legislature outlining the revised statewide House plan that has been posted to the website. LSO also provided the map as well as the geographic files to the county clerks and their geographic information system staff or GIS staff for review and comment. So far, we've only received one, I guess now two, sorry. Yesterday, we received an additional comment related to Region 7, but we also received comment from Region 5, and they had no recommended changes at this time. I believe at this time of year, we're kind of waiting and we'll receive additional feedback over the next few weeks. The other item I wanted to point out to the committee, I believe it's in your packets, I think it's the last handout in your packets, is the committee requested a review of the South Cheyenne area for potential majority minority district. LSO did review that, and I wanted to show you what that encompassed. So if you look, I'm sharing my screen. This is the current statewide plan and how it allocates two districts in the South Cheyenne area. So what we did was we looked at this area, these two districts combined, this one right here, I think it's 44, and then what this would be House District 12, and looked at that in terms of what is the minority population share or at the block level. So in your packet, you should have a handout. Let me get to it. Pardon me. And this kind of shows the outline of what that South Cheyenne area looked like. And you can ignore the deviations. This was just kind of showing you the outline of the area. And obviously it encompasses two House districts. So that's why the deviation is 104%. But I just wanted to show you kind of the outline of the area that we looked at. It generally follows those two districts. It does also take in a little bit of House District 42 to the west, as well as House District 43 to the east. In total, this area was almost 20,000 people. And as you can see from this map, and I can show you a little bit further down. So this would be the proposed House District 44. And you can see from the map, the lighter color is a less densely populated Hispanic population. And then as you go to the warmer colors, the red would be a higher density minority or Hispanic population. That was the primary category that we looked at. I did in the memo, I provided some additional information on those individuals that responded to the census as any part minority, basically, any part Black, any part American Indian, that sort of stuff. In general, while there is a substantial population of Hispanics and other minorities in this area, it kind of capped out at about 30 to 32% in terms of if you could actually get a district at between 9133 and 100095, the minimum and maximum within the deviation, you could max out roughly about 30% of a minority population. So it doesn't appear to provide enough density or distribution of census blocks to make a majority minority district. That's kind of the gist of it. I'm here for questions if you would like to.
Questions for Mr. Swang? Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so just to follow up, if we were to reconfigure the current House districts 44 and 12, is there a way to configure them that you would get above a 50% Hispanic threshold? in a
Mr.
contiguous
Chairman?
way?
I did test some, not very many. I probably half a dozen tests to figure out what configurations might provide for that. Again, because you can see there's a lot of red here, but they're not necessarily red contiguous. They're kind of spots of red. And that's the highest density of Hispanic respondents to the census. I did look at an example would be taking South Greeley Highway and going eastward toward College Drive. That was, I guess, the highest percentage minority district between 30 and 31% at a district that was a roughly 9,300 people. There were, because I didn't have enough time to do a larger analysis. It's unlikely that we can get much more than 30 to 35% within one district.
Further questions, committee? Mr. Swang, anything further?
Mr. Chairman, that is all kind of the LSO working or talking points since the last meeting.
Huge thank you to Michael, Josh, you guys from staff. I've been burning the midnight oil. I know my emails get responded to pretty close to the middle of the night. So a big thank you to you guys. So thanks again. With that, our next one is we've got two areas that we're kind of still back out in the area. One that was solved that I'll bring back up, which was the Northeast. But first, because it affects what goes in the Northeast, if Representative Summers, Majority Floor Leader Summers, if you'd like to present your plan and we'll work through it. Do you have anyone you'd like to have with you? Okay. Welcome, Majority Floor Leader. You got the floor.
Mr. Chair, let me see if this works. Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you. And I'm going to preface this with a few comments, but looks like Michael's got the plan up. So I think one thing that the committee needs to decide is not only what any long-term goals they are, but also what is possible. And in essence, is status quo better than a lot of disruption? And so what my plan attempts to do is do more of a status quo plan, less disruption, particularly on the Senate side. And so what you see before you is a plan that is regions 9 and 10. It encompasses Rock River into Region 9 and into House District 47. Rock River currently is in House District 47. House District 47 lost a lot of population, and I don't believe that we need to remove Rock River from that and cause it even greater disruption to the west. So what this plan basically does is it creates a 14 House District, 7 Senate District, Region 9 and 10 combined. And I guess to highlight one of the issues would be around Evanston. It's really tight there with population. And so there's some community of interest issues, or maybe more like ward issues. I think Representative Eric could talk to that. But my idea is to not disrupt, like to district out people, right? I mean, to me, that's one thing you all have to consider. Is it worth disrupting people to move people around? And I realize Laramie County has grown. And while that map, let's, for a better word, let's call it the Zwanitzer plan, works really well for my county, because my county wants to my county wants to move south. That's where our school district is to the south. We want to go south, but I realize that that is a disruptive plan when you get into Carbon County. And so what my plan does is it kind of keeps the status quo. We are at the kind of the bare minimum. Albany County would still have 4 House districts that would be, I believe, at 9206. I had Michael create a map for Albany County, but I believe they would be better in Albany County to create their own map for what's left, but it's certainly doable. And if you want to see an example, that could be shown. But Mr. Chairman, I would stand for questions, but and just one other thing, Mr. Chairman, I think it's really important early on today. You guys kind of need to poll yourselves, in my opinion, to find out where you are on these issues of 14 versus 13 on that southern western corridor. And if you're going to go down a certain path, I think it's whatever path that is, I think everybody needs to know so we can figure tweaks to make this work going forward. So I just think we need to know what your path is.
Thank you. Good presentation. That's why I put you first, is that path's critical to finishing our plan. We'll vote on it today, and we're going to have to stick with hard decisions ahead. Questions for Majority Floor Leader Summary? Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Majority Floor Leader, do you know what the average deviation for each of the districts in this plan is?
No, but I bet Michael does, but it's really high. It's like, I know there's several districts at minus 4.9. But what the average is, Mike, Mr. Swank, maybe?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Swank.
the average for this plan, if you include Rock River, is about 92.24. So it's roughly probably 4.5 to 5% per district. Negative, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, so Majority Floor Leader Summers, you'd say that there's basically very little wiggle room to be able to adjust these lines any further to try to satisfy, for example, Uinta County's issues, and you basically have to go into Teton County. There's no other way around it for this plan.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. It's really tight going west. We got 14 districts at 90, whatever that number was, 9207. It is really tight. And if you look at it, Carbon, I think, lost 1,300 and some, Sweetwater lost 1,500 and some, Sublet lost 1,500, and Uinta lost 600. There's over 5,000 that was lost there. And Lincoln, North Lincoln and Teton gained over little over 3,000. So the numbers just you just can't, it's just hard to make it fit. And so it is really tight, but it is the least disruptive plan down there that we have available, I think.
Any further questions? Majority Floor Leader Summers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Charlie Scott, question, am I right in thinking that with this plan, all the Albany County districts are within the plus or minus 5% deviation?
Mr. Swank, you answer that? I'm guessing he knows it better than any of us.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Scott, if Rock River is taken out of Albany County can support 4 districts within deviation. However, they are very low, between -4% and -5%.
Committee, further questions?
Just, Mr. Chairman, just one final thing. I think that shows you, right? Basically, Albany County all the way through Teton, it's really tight. It's really tight with numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So any consideration given to how you would nest senators in this configuration? Because the way I think our Senate president, I guess I'm confused on Lincoln County. If you could kind of say what you believe might be the right nesting. Are you going to put the blue and the yellow together, or the blue and the green and the yellow and the red?
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So obviously the Teton County has its nesting to the north. And I don't know Senate districts, but basically Senator President Dockstetter would nest with 22, which is Roscoe, and 21, which is Simpson. And then Fred would nest with basically Uinta, with that one and that one there. Mine and 18, so 20 and 18. And then Uinta's nested by itself because it has Evanston and the blue. So there's a little Evanston one in there that's also a district. And then you would have the two that include the carbons. So it's just like it is now. Same districts would nest with the same Senate seats.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, so I think I did point this out at the last meeting when we talked about this sort of option before, which is Senator Baldwin gets 5 counties, right? So he'd be in Teton County, Sublette County, Lincoln County, Sweetwater County, and Uinta County. So it'd be a 5-county senator, which would be a fourth of the state.
Been there, done that. We'll just go to management council and get him a little bigger budget to travel on. All right, further questions? Senator Boner.
So just to be clear, since we're having conversations about being within tolerance or just being right at that, extreme, in this case, the lower extreme, to be explicit, this plan would include having Laramie County be at 10 districts. Is that correct? First of all, and if so, I probably have a few questions about the current plan with Laramie County having the exact same challenges as what we were describing with this potential plan with it. I think the one plan I saw with 11 House districts, 5 of those districts were below 5%. And in my mind, it shows the drawbacks of going between these two extremes. But anyways, just a simple question so the committee knows what your proposal is. This does basically take that 11th House district out of Laramie County and puts it back in Regions 9 and 10. Is that correct, sir?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. And really it's, you guys are in a tough spot because Laramie County, as you know, is at 10.5. So if you take it out, right, if you take it out of that area, then all of us on that's left over there, we go to the upper extreme, right? Then we go to all +4 point something. I don't know what that average is. Maybe Mr. Swag knows, but it's pretty high. And then when you put it back in, we go to the minus. And I'll be honest, Senator Boner, your plan is probably the most disruptive for that area, but it's the one that makes the most sense logically. If you were to think about how do you crack this nut of all this lost population, it would make sense to come at it from both angles where you have population. The problem is that plan really is disruptive to Albany County, extremely.
Further questions? Eddie?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Scott.
following up on that, if we needed more population, we could move a few of the Laramie County precincts that border Albany County into the Albany County districts, move a little bit of Western Albany County into House District 47, and ripple a smaller number across without being so disruptive. But if we don't have to do it to stay within the 5%, I would recommend to us that it makes the numbers look prettier, but it does not improve anybody's representation. Because when you start getting people in Laramie County represented by somebody in Albany County, they're different communities. And the people you moved from Laramie County into Albany County would have a great deal more difficulty accessing their representatives, wouldn't see them routinely the way we do when they're in the community. So I can't see, it would make the numbers look prettier, but I can't see doing it unless we absolutely have to. Because I think you do degrade the quality of the representation that people are getting.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative
Mr. Chairman,
Summers.
thank you. And I think that's the challenge you all have. You know, to be frankly honest, I'm going to go into, with the plan I just submitted, I would go into Teton County, right? Are the people in Teton County the same as the people in Sublette County? I'm going to be representing people that are not probably of like community of interest. So there's disruptions any way we go. Any way you go, there's going to be disruptions in community of interest.
Honest answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions for Representative Summers? All clear. Do we have anybody online? Where's Senator Hicks? Say, Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to provide a little bit of insight. I'm going to support the Representative Majority Floor Leader Summers' plan for some of the reasons that he talked about. So I want to contrast for you what his plan does and what the current, what I'll call the Z plan does. The Z plan, in effect, takes in Region 9 and it redistricts one Senate district, which is my district. It redistricts me out of my district. Also, it redistricts 47, moves that to Cheyenne, redistricts that position out of there, moves it over to Green River. So it's extremely disruptive to Sweetwater and Carbon County. It also, the net effect of that, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, is you've now taken communities of interest, which is very rural Wyoming, and you've now nested those, one in the city of Cheyenne. You've taken all of southern Carbon County and then you put it in with Green River. So the net effect is you've taken one Senate district and two House districts that were primarily rural districts and seeded them to the point where you've destroyed that rural community of interest and put a minority of those rural areas into municipalities where they'll lack representation. I think it's tremendously disruptive both to the legislature and also to those communities of interest. One of the things that I would like to talk about just real briefly is the whole issue that you guys are grappling with. And it seems like, and I think Representative Summers did a good job laying out, we're dealing with the bare bone minimum population here of minus 0.48. If you adopted this plan, it would essentially provide the same thing that you would end up with in Laramie County. You'd have 10 districts that are roughly a minus 0.45 or minus 0.46. So it would provide some homogeneity, some consistency across. My biggest concern with the existing plan now is the lack of consistency in how it's being applied across the state. And if I can, let me see if I can illustrate that. So, Mr. Chairman, as I understand the plan as it sits today, we've recognized the Bighorn Basin and allowed them to go up to a -6. It seems to me if we were going to do that, then we would recognize that other places in the state, like the Summers plan that does a -0.48, that's acceptable. But what I question is, why is it permissible or desirable for the entire 4-county region of the Bighorn Basin to go to a -6, but then look at Laramie County and then we ignore the court accepted level of a -0.45 below the margins of the ideal population? And the -0.45 is obviously Laramie County's grown. If you look at the information that I had sent out to you yesterday, it's about a 10.45 seat. But if you take that down to the minimum, it still works. But why would we take one county and move it to the top when you have Carbon, Sweetwater, Uinta, Lincoln, Sublette, Teton, Park, Washakie, Lincoln, and all those other counties that are dealing with the bottom of the population? That's what the status quo would do under what we'll call the Scott plan. The other plan that's being promoted is the Z plan, shows Laramie County above the minimum when the vast majority of the state is below, the entire western half of the state and the southern half. So I just think, Mr. Chairman, that the Summers plan is by far the least disruptive. It doesn't district any members out of their districts. It's consistent across all of Region 9, 10, and the entire Bighorn Basin for working in the minimum level of the population. And quite frankly, I think it does the best to keep communities of interest together for the most part. I understand there's some minor issues there, particularly with that southern Teton County, but for the most part, I think this plan is superior to the current contemplated Z plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd stand for any questions.
Questions for Vice President Hicks? Representative Yan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice President Hicks. Have you been able to have a conversation with the folks in Rock River about what their representation looks like and whether they'd like to stay and be moved to Albany County or stay in your Senate district?
Vice President Hicks. You're muted still, Senator Hicks. There we go. All right.
Yeah, Representatives Ian and Mr. Chairman, to the question is, in fact, I've had conversations with the folks in Rock River for the last 10 years. They've been in Senate District 11 for the last 10 years. It's a very rural community. It is a community of interest. It is adjoined with Medicine Bow, McFadden, Arlington, Elk Mountain, and Hannah. It's a very isolated rural area in Albany County. Historically, the ranching communities over there, those ranches transcend across county boundaries. The commerce in that area is much more consistent with eastern Carbon County than it is the city of Laramie. So, but to be specific, yeah, I've had conversations for 10 years because I represented those people, and I think I've done a very good job because it's consistent with the community of interest of most of the rest of Carbon and my Senate district, a very small urban municipalities. In fact, I have 13 municipalities in my district, Rock River being one of them. Of those 13, 12 of those have a population of less than 1,200. So it is a very consistent community of interest representing those small entities. So I think that answers the question. Representative Yan, if I can provide any more clarification, I would like to do so.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So Senator Hicks, I mean, your current Senate district is already the largest landmass district in the continental US. And the map I'm looking at adds another, I don't know, 1,000, 1,500 square miles larger. I mean, your district still is going from Rock River to Forest and Eden, and now it's going all the way, I mean, around Green River and south to Flaming Gorge. Like, does that concern you? I mean, your current district, now you're adding, I don't know, 1,500 square miles more territory to cover?
Yeah, and in that 1,500 square miles, there's probably only about 400 people scattered across there. So it is consistent with the rest of my district of being extremely rural, isolated ranches. So it makes a very consistent community of interest. It does bring in the communities of Superior and Alliance that are again consistent with Rock River, Medicine Bow, Hannah, Elk Mountain, Baggs, Dixon, Savory, Wamsutter, Bear Oil, Reliance, Point of Rocks, Forest and Eden. These are all very small. So it makes maybe geographically large, community of interest very, very similar. Once you got to drive a couple hundred miles, an extra 50 to 75 just doesn't seem to make a difference.
Further questions, Vice President Hicks? Thank you. We have one in the back of the room, I think, would like to come. Last but not least, welcome. Hopefully.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, although I don't think I will be asking. First, let me just let you know that this was the second time in my 29 years in Wyoming where I slid off the road this morning. The roads are awful out there. So I'm still a little bit frazzled, so excuse me. Okay, but I also believe that online we have the mayor of Rock River as well as our Albany County clerk, I believe, and perhaps others from Albany County here as well who would like to speak regarding Region 2. We had a conversation yesterday looking at the Summers map as well as talking briefly about the Boner map. And we remain committed to Region 2, Albany County, kind of remaining whole. The numbers support it, right? We have had public meetings that wholly support the county remaining whole. And I want to bring up one other thing, and I agree completely with Senator Hicks. And I have said this publicly, but I'm going to tell you that it's not something all 6 of us in Region 2 have talked about. But Senator Hicks brings up a very good point that at this point, it seems really inappropriate for us to be allowing a whole swath of this state, the Bighorn Basin, to go out of deviation on one hand, and then another swath of the state, right, the Laramie County, which is at least a half of a representative above the 10 that they have right now, to kind of remain static and for us to work around that. That doesn't make sense. And in all honesty, how it's making sense in some of these plans is through Albany County, right? We can't accept that, right, in Albany County, that we are the solution, when in all honesty, we have grown in population. We can fit within, right, the plus or minus deviation. And what you'll hear, and including from Rock River, that the community of interest is Albany County. And we fit within, right, the guidelines that have been set up by this committee. And so we ask for Region 2 to remain. But I also want to mention that I do appreciate when Majority Floor Leader Summers saying that if Rock River was to go someplace else, we'd like to draw those lines, right? Rather than Mr. Swank did a great job, but we would like to be drawing those lines. But we remain committed, right, to supporting Albany County and Region 2 remaining whole.
Mr. Minority Floor Leader. Thank you. Thank you. Everyone's
if you-
ox is getting bored.
If you don't mind, I think I have some of my other folks that are online.
We will. We'll
who would
bring my
like to
asked out online, and now we obviously have got some in, so we'll bring in whoever is first in line. And oh, Senator Rothfuss there. If he's there, we probably put him first. What are the legislators? Can we do that?
Mr. Chairman, I defer to our clerk and Mayor Leslie from Rock River, and then I'll give comments afterwards if that would be appropriate.
We'll think about that. No, we'll go ahead and go there. We'll go to the clerk then, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Wallace.
Thank you. Senator Hicks, members of the committee. Albany County has worked very, very hard to follow the core principles that were established by the committee at the beginning. We had two very good conversations with representatives of Albany County that supported Albany County remaining whole. We used best practices. We looked at unanimity between the county, the city, and the town of Rock River. And we have concerns in regard to representation of Rock River moving to Carbon County. 10 years ago, the Albany County delegation worked very, very hard at that time to include Rock River as part of Albany County's redistricting plan, and we were unsuccessful. Again, our attempt is to bring us together so that we remain whole. I did check with my colleague in Carbon County Clerk Gwen Bartlett. She was unaware of the new plan that was developed by Representative Summers. And as a clerk, it's important to work as a team with our delegation so that we put together what is in the best interest of the people that we serve. And so I just want to reiterate that Albany County would like to remain whole. We, as our numbers are shared currently, we meet the deviation where probably is best represented with the numbers that we currently have, and certainly appreciate you considering our request to remain whole. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Questions from Ms. Gonzalez? Thank you. I think we have the mayor of Rock River now. Mr. Leslie?
Leslie.
Thank you very much
Leslie, my
for
apologies.
allowing me to, can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. This, I have to admit, this whole process is all new to me. And I realize that Rock River is just numbers on a map. But for Rock River, I've been the mayor here. I'm into my third term, and we've had no representative from 47 come talk to us about our issues. We've always delved in with Albany County. Our voting district is in Albany County. Our school is in Albany County. Our law enforcement comes from Albany County. All of our residents are employed in Albany County. We shop in Albany County. We have no invested interest in Carbon County. And I don't understand why we're set in that huge District 47 when we're highly invested in District 14. And I appreciate that you're allowing me to speak. And we would like to go back to Albany County and District 14 if at all possible. It is in the best interest of this small town of Rock River to be included in that district. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Representative Greer.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Mayor Leslie, Rock River's not just numbers on a map to any of us. We care about every citizen, every community in the state. So just want you to know that, okay? Thanks.
Well, I appreciate that. Unfortunately, like I said, I've been the mayor here for 14 years, and the only time I see a representative or hear from one is during an election season. So with Albany County, I feel that Rock River would have a stronger voice and would be heard more on the state level.
Are there questions for the mayor? Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Senator Rothfuss, would you like to chime in at this point?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide some testimony. I will echo what's been stated that for us, it really is an important matter of maintaining our community of interest. We have appropriate numbers. There are plausible plans available to maintain our community of interest and to keep Rock River as a part of the Albany County community. I think that was a disservice to them 10 years ago when they were isolated, because there really are very different interests for the community of Rock River as a part of Albany County relative to Carbon County and even Sweetwater County based on this map. The idea that someone from Farson, Wyoming could be elected to represent Rock River is honestly just an absurdity. And I do understand that we will unquestionably have challenges where folks in different counties will be required to represent those in other counties. But the idea that we would say, well, if we're going to do it in one place, then we might as well do it everywhere. I just don't think that's justifiable. Our first priority is to try not to break county boundaries, to maintain those strong community of interests. And when we look at the original proposal that we were offered to work with by good Senator Scott, he recognized that to the greatest degree possible. So while we're looking at small deviations to appropriately recognize and prioritize communities of interest, for example, in the basin, as good Representative Greer has pointed out, maybe a small deviation there is appropriate because you get better representation from that. And it would be hard for a court to come back and say, well, you stayed within the numbers by having Farson represent Rock River. So that's good. Much better than if we just maintained a unified Albany County. I don't think anyone on any court would see it that way, because the representation and the representative principle of one person, one vote is to try and ensure appropriate representation, not simple mathematics. Maintaining District 47 as it is right now, or something proximal to it, I think hurts the people of Albany County, hurts the people of Rock River, and we'll continue to resist it on behalf of the folks in Rock River, as Mayor Leslie pointed out, and the folks in Albany County, as represented by County Clerk Gonzalez. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
For Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, let me respond to one thing in all that. It was stated that maintaining the county boundaries was primary. And unfortunately fortunately, that is not true. The primary thing we've got to do is to honor the one man, one vote rule, equal protection clause, 14th Amendment. And frankly, the courts have got that right. The second priority is maintaining the county boundaries, because they do mean a lot in this state. They are really represent real communities, and this discussion illustrates that. But I'm persuaded in this one that to do a reasonable job of getting the whole southwestern corner of the state districted in districts that people can understand and make sense and that work, we're going to have to use the population from Rock River as the best source we can find in order to get that whole thing, the southwest corner, done within the population limits. And the courts, I think, have quite wisely given this latitude that translates into plus or minus 5%. And that enables us to do rational districts. And as long as we're within that, I think we've honored the equal protection clause. And I think that's what we're having to do here. And I'm persuaded that this is the best way. I great sympathy with the idea of keeping Rock River within its own county, but I don't see how we can do it and make it work.
Mr. Chairman, may I quickly respond?
Yes.
I just wanted to correct what I said when I said it was a top priority. If I said the top priority, my apologies to the committee. Absolutely, one person, one vote is identified as the highest priority. As you're laying out the boundaries within that context, I expect county lines to be sort of the next most sacred thing. But I definitely don't want to misstate that, because we have heard alternative theories that county lines are more important than one person, one vote. And I definitely don't want to leave that opinion. That said, again, the idea that we have to go into Albany County to satisfy anything else is just inaccurate. It is very plausible, and I'm happy to draw 3 to 5 maps for you that don't do that. I submitted one to the committee that was 100% compliant in every district in the state at the first meeting. So the idea that we have no choice but to invade Albany County is inaccurate. So if anyone would like me to work with this map and provide an alternative that does not go into Albany County based on this map, but is still fully compliant within every county that we see here, I'm happy to provide that to the committee. Just ask. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple observations. And number one, just from a historical context, it's always been Laramie County that's invading other counties. I think we can go back to the historical context on that. But just a couple of points that I'd like to make out as far as the discussion of somebody from Farson representing and somebody in Rock River or that rural part of Albany County. I'm just trying to figure out what the distinction of that would be from somebody from Farson representing somebody in Medicine Bow or McFadden or Arlington, which are all in Carbon County that are almost the equal distance. And the fact is Rock River and many of those people within that district live much closer to a municipality in Carbon County than they do in Albany County. So I just don't see that there's some equivalent problem with somebody in Farson or somebody in McFadden or somebody in Medicine Bow representing Rock River. Rock River is a district. It's not necessarily just the municipal boundaries. It's a rural area out there too. So, you know, I don't know that argument carries much weight when you look at the entire district across the board. But I do think it's worth mentioning. Mr. Chairman, I understand the difficulties of moving across county lines and stuff, but again, we need to work within the confines of the courts that have given us, and that's the ±5 to the extent possible, and maintaining those communities of interest. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Hicks, so your district, it runs across either 3 or 4 different counties, and my county has 3 districts in it and small districts, and this sacredness of county lines seems to be if it's your own county. Do you have any, I mean, in that part of the world, the remoteness and the ruralness, there's not that much difference in county lines. And in your experience, do you see those counties pitted against each other when you're representing them and have to make a tough choice between one of the 3 or 2 of the 3? And historically, is it similar?
Vice President Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, that's a good question. The only time I've seen that those make a difference is in and at the county fair and high school football. Other than that, those community interests are pretty similar. I would tell you as somebody that I can't tell you the number of times that I've got up and used the number of small towns that I represent, and there is a common interest in those small towns when we deal with distribution formulas and the hardship formulas and all those things. That's a consistency across the board. But specific to your question, in my entire time in the legislature, I've never seen a county line as sacrosanct, that it was inviolate. In fact, in my entire time in the Wyoming Senate, I've represented more than one county, like many of you have done. Historically, until we go back to when we had 1 senator per county, I think that's been consistent in our history for the last 30 or some plus years, maybe 40. So I don't see that that's a sacrosanct boundary, and it's worked well for the state of Wyoming for a long time.
Thank you. Further questions? Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify, I thought that I heard, and I could have been mistaken. I thought I heard that in the Z plan, one of the senators was taken out of his district. And I'm just curious, I didn't think that was so. I was wondering if someone could respond to that off of the Z plan. Thank you.
Swank, do you know?
Mr. Chairman, in the current statewide plan adopted by the committee, in the carbon Sweetwater area, there is one district, one house district reduced. Therefore, there would be a different nesting plan. Depending on how things are nested, it is possible for two senators to be opponents in the next election. It is not assured, and I don't know that any specific, we haven't confirmed all the residences with the current plan, but I don't know that anyone has specifically been districted out at this point.
Thank you. As good as we get. Further questions, anyone?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead. Not sure.
if I can add on to that. So if you look at the current Z plan, and you look at that nesting and you look at the logical progression of that nesting, what it effectively does is it redistricts me out because it moves House District 47, which I live in, and puts that over into Laramie County. So this is the Summers plan before you as it sits today. So the logical progression of that re-nesting of those Senate district puts me in the same district as, I believe it's District 12, would go into Green River under the Z plan, and I would be in the same district as Senator James. So that's the logical progression of that Senate nesting in those districts. Without some major gerrymandering, that's what would happen, was the effective would redistrict me out and put me into Green River with Senator James's district.
Thank you. Further questions? Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, am I right in thinking we really don't have a Senate plan that goes with the so-called Z plan, and we really don't know what that plan would do? I think Senator Hicks is probably correct in some of his speculation, but the problem, one of the problems with that Z plan is we simply don't know how it would operate in the Senate. But as it stands before us now, is just a House plan. You have a half a Senate district in Laramie County with with an 11th representative, and you have a half a Senate plan in the southwestern part of the state. They took 47, so it might be Larry's, it might be somebody else's if they ever developed a Senate plan to go with it. And we know that will be quite disruptive, but it isn't, I think, entirely clear how the proponents of that Z plan would solve that problem.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Scott is perfectly correct in that, as the committee agreed to, we're only working the House districts because that's just how we started. But certainly in this process and based on the statewide plan compilation number 1, that there is a concern over 11 House districts in Laramie County and how that would affect Senate district nesting. So going back to Representative Sommer's concerns about we need to make some principled decisions here about where we're going. One of those is, as Senator Scott points out every meeting we've had and we have failed to address, is whether or not we're going to stay committed to Senate districts having 2 House districts nested inside of them. That question needs to be fundamentally answered, I think, before we can thoughtfully move forward with the House district plan, which goes to Senator Hicks's concern whether or not he is districted out, which certainly would be the possibility if we have to stick with, or if we are sticking with 2 House districts nested within a Senate district. If we're not, Senator Hicks, I'm not sure that that's your concern anymore. So there are a number of scenarios that can happen here, but we do need to figure out the Senate plan, primarily based on whether or not we're going to stay committed to the principle of 2 House districts within a Senate district. I'm not sure why I would be married to a concept that doesn't work based on population distributions now or looking at future prospects. I liked the idea of having 2 House districts in a Senate district. It has worked well for me. And I think in my representation of the people of Laramie County, I think sticking through to some of those principles of having predominantly 2 House districts within a Senate district makes sense, similar to the county principle. But going slightly outside of a House district, I don't think causes the amount of chaos that we're all fearing it may have, nor do I have that preoccupation or concern. So with that, I would kind of circle back to the conversation with Representative Summers, who is asking for some kind of additional decisions from this committee in concept, so that the other legislators and the public and ourselves can start getting through these next level of plans.
Thank you. Question for Senator Nethercott. Representative Yen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Nethercott. So, I've kind of been thinking about this on and off about whether we should just give up on nesting, and something that could be a very interesting compromise, which I really never thought of until right at this moment, is that we could compromise between Region 9 and 10 and Laramie County. If you have 11 in Laramie County and then 7 senators in the Region 9 and 10 region, so one Laramie County would get an extra representative, while 9 and 10 would keep the extra senator. And I wonder what anyone would think about that as a compromise, rather than cutting up Albany County as a quote unquote compromise.
Questions? Committee? Senator Boner.
Well, no questions, but since we're on the topic, I think that part of the challenge for this process is we've kind of jumped the gun with a House-centric plan without having any solid proposal for the Senate. And I think all of us can be open to that idea of having separate unnested, Senate districts, but we need an actual plan, not just a concept and not just a promise of doing it later. And so for now, I think it's important until we have that compromise and it's actually real, not just a idea. We do have to recognize the way that the current sponsor plan does significantly disrupt the Senate, and just like to point out that eventually you have to kind of, we took a House district out of the southwest part of the state, we put it in the southeast part of the state. Eventually, if we stay with the nested concept, they have to connect. And if we're going to continue with this notion that somehow Albany County is special and not going to be split up at all, including in the Senate, that means that you have a ripple effect that goes all the way through the east side of the state, through Natrona County, into Sweetwater and Carbon County. And so we really do need to start thinking about having a complete plan. I'm open to the concept, there being a compromise, but it has to be an action. We have to actually vote on that as a whole package. I think we can't continue doing this piecemeal ideas where we get a little bit here and then, we'll save the rest for later. For now, I think that's an argument to support the Summers plan, and then come back later with this concept that has 11 House seats in Laramie County, but only has 5 Senate seats. So that's where I'm at right now.
Dave Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not that this would necessarily get any traction, but want to throw out the concept or the idea of not to throw more gasoline on the piecemeal, kicking the can, whatever cliche we can throw in here. But why can't we do nesting as well as multi-member, and do the multi-member in the situation where it's necessary, where we have this issue, and then where it fits and works, do the nesting when it comes to Senate. So in those areas that it needs it, so in such where we have the problem where we have the Southwest or the down in the difficulty of the carbon where Senator Hicks is and such, why couldn't we do the multi-member and then do the nesting everywhere else and have a combination? That way, maybe if the multi-member seems to take traction and work, maybe eventually 10 years down the road, we do that everywhere. But couldn't we do a hybrid of the two to resolve the issue.
Co-chairman, do you want?
Go ahead, you can answer.
I'm not going to answer. It's, we've talked multi-member and I guess, my end, I think this is a legitimate deal, but we've agreed to do the house maps. I think later you'll see, we're passing around here, which nobody online can see, but potentially a Senate, which is what Senator Scott's talked about. If there isn't a plan, we're going to have to get there, but we've got to get to where we've got a map for the House districts. We've come a long ways down the road. My belief is we've got to go ahead and finish it, and you've got to do the heavy lift to do the Senate. If you don't, we've all seen as the committee, as the Band-Aid gets ripped off county by county, who gets scored. And at this point in time, I don't think we have a single ox that doesn't have a hornhole in it. Every county other than the thrown in a couple that are intact have all been beat up pretty well. So my thoughts is we're going to continue on Summers plan and debate a little, and then we'll move on to the Senate deal a little bit probably after we've done mine. Representative Blackburn.
Thank you. So I'm hearing we're concerned about the disruption of the senator's seats and senators having to be redistricted and things. So maybe we better just backtrack even on our representatives and find out who's being harmed or not harmed and what representatives will lose a district and what representatives have to fight over a district throughout the state. Is it just a local thing or is it throughout the state? What are we doing?
I think we've come a long ways. We're down to 2 regions left. That's kind of where we're at today. I think we need to maybe take a short break. I'm going to take who's left to testify, maybe take a short break. Everybody can kind of digest just a little bit and we'll come back. Do we have multiple people in the waiting room? One, let's go ahead and put them up. Welcome, Mr. Krente. You have the floor.
Forgive me, Mr. Chairman, I'm in a kind of satellite location today. Thank you for allowing public testimony. I'm hearing a lot of things that are concerning me this morning, mostly talking about senators and representatives being districted out of their seats. I want to remind the committee, these are the people's seat that these individuals were elected to represent the people through. So the continued talk about looking at maps based on where current representatives live, I'm sorry that I'm not sorry that it's gerrymandering and it's problematic. This is a math problem. There were principles set up by the committee that are now kind of being bent or forgotten based on the concern that somebody might have to run against somebody that's already seated, or they might have to run with a new community. And it's a big issue. I do appreciate the novelty of being able to agree with the House Minority Leader for the first time in forever. Albany County has the population to make their plan work. We've seen maps that statewide will keep that whole. Carbon County has very little argument. We have the population we have, and we've always needed to share with another county. But the one problem I have is none of these plans have ever come to the people in Carbon County. We've not had any public meetings. It's basically, we're going to do whatever makes the northwest corner and southeast corner work the best. And then Carbon County can just eat the rest of it. So to quote a member of the committee, I won't waste your time with any more of that stuff. And I'll just come with the ask that the Wyoming Republican Party's redistricting committee has had at every meeting since the beginning. If this process is going to continue to go ahead in the manner it is based on the judicial relief, I would like to see a resolution drafted by the LSO to adopt an amendment to the Constitution, making this process what our Constitution says we are going to do. I could talk for quite a while about all the specific individual issues in Region 9 and Region 10.
Summers plan, please. Just stick with Summers. If we got other issues, we can deal with them at the end of the meeting. We'll have more comment, but right now we're on Summers plan on your end of the state.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This problem with the Summers plan is we had a map earlier, I believe the original Independent Scott plan that worked much better, not only for the counties themselves, but also for the clerks. Every time we are looking at these plans, I'm seeing more and more splits created. And then if the idea of not nesting the Senate districts, which was just brought up, happens, that creates additional splits for those county clerks in every single race, which increases that dollar amount for any of the elections that we seem to be arguing about on other issues. So I would stand against the Summers plan. I would ask that any of these plans actually be brought to the people in Carbon County, and that the original Scott plan, even if Senator Scott has had some change of heart, be looked at as the best possible plan to do some of the adhering to the principles set forth by this committee, which includes respecting county lines, minimizing splits for the clerks, and making sure that that deviation across the state is as equal as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stand for any questions.
Appreciate it. I have a tiny bit of comment, a little bit of kickback as far as public meetings in your county and their accesses. The truth is, the legislators in about every county have held meetings. The ability is there for them to hold them themselves. And this meeting's evidence that it's a Zoom meeting. We've got the mayor of Rock River on. Anybody that wants to participate can. That's what this is. And so anybody that's inside your district, or in fact, the entire state, has the ability to comment at, this is probably the 5th or 6th meeting. And LSO takes comments from any of us. I, as chairman, have had very few comments out of your district about what they'd like to see. And our process necessarily is as transparent and open as we can be. But we do listen to everybody, but we can't hold a meeting in every town. It just doesn't work that way. And you know, your local representatives or your members or cities or clerks themselves, which been evidenced in our district, Campbell County, Weston County, ours have all held meetings themselves without push from the legislature. So that's my 2 cents worth on it. And thank you. Questions for Mr. Correnti? Mr. Co-Chairman? No. We'll break till 10. welcome back. Do we have any more testimony of any kind? I don't think so. Okay, public testimony is closed. We're back to committee. What's your pleasure? I'm going to move it just because Albert's. I'll move the Summers plan. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Sure.
Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so just for, the one side of the argument, the other way, I mean, quite honestly, as a Laramie County legislator, having 6 of our districts being drawn at -6.2, and then another 14 being drawn, at -4.8, and then still making Laramie County, which has experienced significant growth and continues to, all drawing at 4.8, 4.75 to 4.85, is uncomfortable that we're trying to, allow 1/3 of the state to draw at 5% and to continue to have Laramie County then draw at 4.7. Natrona County is still drawing at 4.4 above. Campbell County, depending on how this plan works out, is still at 4. I guess it was 2.8 in the last plan. So it does seem Campbell, if you keep, yes, on your plan. So it does seem weird to me the 3 largest counties in the state are all being forced to draw it between 3 to 5% above deviation. So 20 of the districts in the other counties, all of which besides Teton and Lincoln are either static or losing population, can stay whole. And I do agree with Representative Summers that his plan he brought probably is the least disruptive. But I think the founders of both our state and the country, we do a census every 10 years and a redistricting because of population changes to ensure, majority of people are represented equally. And I don't think going back to the Summers plan as presented accomplishes that we are cognizant of where the growth is occurring and that we're restricting, I would say, the 3 most populous counties to allow a lot of other counties to draw at 5% or 4% below. So it just doesn't sit right with me. Obviously, you all know where I live. So as a senior legislator from Laramie County, certainly not palatable, as you heard from several members of my county who were more adamant on 11, maybe even than I am. But I do think at 10.5, I can't support the Summers plan. And I'm fully admitting that we don't have a great nesting plan yet. But that being said, if we're continuing on with the House plan on the House districts and then working on nesting later, I would speak against the motion.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to the beginning of the committee and the work and the principles we outlined, the least disruption was not a principle, right? In fact, our principles were associated with one man, one vote. And so the plan has currently been voted on, originally starting off as this Wanitzer plan, amended by Boner. And currently our statewide plan 1 on December 28th of 2021 is the most consistent with the principles that we identified at the beginning of our meeting. The purpose of redistricting is not to keep the least disruption. It actually is to embrace the change that is occurring within our state based on population and growth or lack of population and decline. The current plan in front of us that we have worked and amended is most consistent reflection of those changes that we are supposed to embrace in the redistricting process. As an elected official, certainly the least disruption feels very comfortable, but it's not actually what is taking place or what needs to take place moving forward. So I am against the Summers plan and in support of the work that we have already done at this point on the committee.
Representative Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for the Summers plan. So the most logical, if we set aside county lines in the most logical direction, and it's been pointed at for this part of the world, when you look at pure numbers, is a split between the Laramie and Albany County line. If we decide that's not something we want to do, the Summers plan makes the most sense. It's workable. When we have to go a shift one county to be 5% over on 10 districts, or basically a third of the state to be 25% over. I think it makes, or 5% over, it makes perfect sense for a third of the state. So on and for the Summers plan.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On for the motion, I think that I'd just like to point out that the Summers plan does comply with the principles that keeps us within deviation, which I think is more than what I can say with the current configuration of House districts in Laramie County. It also is, I like to point out the current plan is not fully thought through, and that we have no idea how it's going to work for the Senate. And I think that should have been part of the thought process before we move forward with this. I think we're in a tough spot, and it'd be best to go back to something that more resembles the status quo, and then we can bring some sort of compromise as a complete plan, not just a notion. So for that reason, I think it's important that we support this plan. It gets us in a spot where we can move forward with tackling these tough issues, both in the House and the Senate, as we look forward to completing an entire plan.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, on and for the Summers plan, I would point out, as it's been previously pointed out, it is within the population deviations. We do recognize with this plan that there has been growth in the Laramie County area. I would point out that right now, one of the Senate and House districts in Laramie County reaches up and grabs a bunch of population out of Goshen County. It looks awful on a map where you reached up and grabbed the medium security prison in Goshen County and some Goshen County residents in the process. The growth in Laramie County has enabled us to get rid of that. And I think that's a recognition of the growth that has happened. So it's not accurate to say there hasn't been a recognition there. We have to do the districting based on the populations that we've got right now in the current census, and not speculate on what might happen in the future. We've seen speculations about the future 10 years out be proved wrong too often. Mr. Chairman, it seems to me it's going to be workable for the Senate. I think it is an improvement over the plan that we had done last time, or 2 times ago, I guess it was, which caused real problems for frankly the Libertarian Party and its representation. This gets rid of that. I think this is an improvement on that all around, and so on for the Summers plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I just want to restate the first 3 redistricting principles. Election districts should be contiguous, compact, reflect community of interest. Election districts should be substantially equal with a range of deviation not to exceed 10% and to the greatest extent possible in establishing election districts. County boundaries should be followed. Census blocks should be followed. So the Summers plan creates 2 new county splits. So it increases another split in Teton County, and it cuts into Albany County, which the current plan does not do. And it cuts up every single community of interest in Region 10. So all of Uinta County, it's chopped up in a way that in our discussions in Region 10 that they weren't happy with. I agree with Representative Summers that I don't want him to be in Hoback. So I would agree that it makes more sense for him to go south. And there are some changes that we could do to Sweetwater County in the current compilation plan to help alleviate some of those. And I did send an email out, and that can help some of it. It would even reduce a county split there as well. But I think this plan violates more of the redistricting principles when the current plan already does reduce the number of county splits, and keeps more community of interest whole, and is also within the deviation within the regions in the south. So I am against the Summers plan. And I think we can do some work to help alleviate some more issues, but I don't think this is the way to do it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a difficult choice to make here, and I just have to agree with Representative Yin. The Summers plan makes the district so close to the deviation boundary that it just leaves us no wiggle room to adjust boundaries at all. And our county clerk, our other two legislators from Uena County are in favor of the current plan rather than the Summers plan. I'm gonna be in support of, or opposed to the Summers plan as well.
The comment. Representative McGuire, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to briefly thank Representative Summers and all the legislators who are here outside of your own committee assignments to go into and figure out and understand redistricting is a big lift. And then to go and draw a plan and drive the entire width of the state to avoid closed highways or to spin out on highways this morning. It says a lot. And so thank you very much for doing that. And I hope that people understand how dedicated the legislature is to the state of Wyoming and the amount of time that goes into this. So thank you very much.
I wish I had said what Representative McGuire just said. I echo what he said. Nobody's more dedicated than Representative Summers. He spends more time and more effort, and he is a solid representative from Sublette County. So thank you.
Further comments? Representative Roscoe, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too would like to echo the sentiments of the last few representatives about Representative Summers' work. And quite frankly, I wouldn't mind him having a little part of my district up there, but I think I'll be against this motion, mainly because of the Senate problem. And that get back to Senator Nethercott's ideas and comments earlier about getting away from of this nesting concept, and I think that is something that the committee should follow, and I don't believe it is as difficult as we think. I'm not exactly sure how to do it right now, but I think that would solve a lot of our problems and give better representation for our citizens. So I will be voting against Representative Summers, and I'll be staying with the original plan that we came up with. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Committee, further comments? Called. All in favor, raise your hand. Senator Scott, you voted last time. Are you opposed or for? He's for it. Okay. barring anything else, we'll go on to mine. And mine's going to be somewhat modified. I've spent a fair amount of time visiting with people from 7.
Mr. Chairman, I, I did not hear the result of the vote.
I'm sorry, it went down. It was 8-6, I believe. Is that correct? 8-6.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Sorry. Now we're back to what I've done, and mine will look different now because basically what we just voted on was 10 or 11 into down south. So the Hot Springs blue area that goes up into the prison down at the south, there's room within that, I believe, Michael, correct, to reabsorb that back into region 6 and 7 together and still meet variance, correct?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
Okay, so that area would go away. It's going to leave this, because of the way the vote went, that leaves this plan with, and basically it's the western whole plan. And what I have said to the districts around us is that includes the part of Crook that goes into Campbell, the part that Campbell shares with Converse, and the southern districts. Those lines can be redone, which we've done before, and the numbers work within them the way it lays. They're roughly where they're at now, won't be a lot different. And that's all the real comments I have is they actually, once you put Crook into Campbell County and continue Campbell County, similar to what you do now with Representative Barlow's district south, it allows it all to fit within deviation, and we'll go roughly the way it looks. There could be some changes within it. Senator Boner's talked to me about some changes in Converse, and he may talk about that, but that's roughly the way it would look. With that, I'll stand for questions or comments. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yeah, I think that for Converse County's perspective, first and foremost, we can follow the current lines denoted in black, and that would work perfectly. Obviously, that retains our lines exactly where they're at, and we can adjust afterwards. But personally, I would benefit if Michael would go over maybe some of the details, and I just need some help understanding how this plan works without dropping 1,000 to 2,000 people out of Goshen County into Laramie County in particular. But I think I know I benefit from an overview from staff too.
You have the floor, Mr. Swank.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Boner. So what should be on your screen right now is the Driscoll plan as presented to the committee. It provides all districts in deviation. It provides Crook County going into Campbell County. I don't recall the exact population, but it is within deviation. It has 4 additional House seats in Campbell County, and then a additional House seat that goes into Converse, as provided by Senator Boner and Senator Driscoll. Senator Boner did propose some adjustments to this plan, which is now on your screen, where the Converse County lines for this plan would follow the current enacted district lines. Again, they all stay within deviation, so Converse County would basically show no changes on the House side under this plan. Because the sharing moving southward, there is room for approximately just under 1,900 people to be shared with from southern Goshen County into Laramie County. And the proposal was to, I believe it goes up to Hot Springs, or maybe it's a little bit higher there, this boundary line right here. And then it would follow the current district line up to the Medium Correctional Institution to capture that population. As I said before, this total is about 1,900 people. 600 of those are from the institution. So it's about 13 to 1,400 that are voting eligible residents. Then there's a district in the central Goshen County, which takes in most of the major municipalities along the highway. And then there's about a 700 person share between North Goshen and Niobrara Weston for that one district. That's the general overview of all those. Also, finally, the Platte County district with the share into Converse would remain the same under the Senator Boner adjustment.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think a little bit of discussion about whether it's possible for Goshen County not to share without Laramie County from a numbers perspective is in order. I just don't see how you do that. There is a plan that we had submitted by the Weston County clerk as well as Region 7 clerks that does that, but the map does look significantly different, at least in Region 7. So just want to throw that out there for the committee's consideration. Like I said, I could be proven wrong, but we have worked through this scenario and it is public available. And I just don't see how that works numbers wise, not having at least 1,000 to 2,000 people from Goshen County go into Laramie County with this plan. So just so I could throw that out there for consideration.
Raw numbers 6 and 7, Mr. Swank, do they fit without going into Laramie?
Mr. Chairman, yes, and actually that is
That's what I
the
thought.
plan that is currently in the statewide compilation. 6 and 7 do support 10 full House districts without any share with Laramie County. There is enough flexibility within the statewide plan for it to share into Goshen and not impact all of those districts to go outside of deviation.
Can you go to the northern part of that again? So if Crook went into Campbell under that and you reconfigured Niobrara and Weston together, you can make that work with the Campbell district going south, correct?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's correct. This is just the last configuration that the
Right,
committee
because
adopted.
that was my whole goal when we started. We tried to figure around 11 in the county. If we did that, I'm more than happy to go back to just leave it to the line. And you take Weston with Niobrara and a tiny little piece, and then Kirk goes into Campbell, and that would be what this plan would be. Can everybody visualize that? So the north piece of the map would look the same. The south piece is going to change because it absorbs those 1,900 people, and it'll move the deviation up, which is what everyone would still be within it. Senator Boner.
And just to briefly, and we can maybe even look, I don't know if Michael could bring that up from the last meeting, that we do have a plan that does, it's the one where, Representative Clausen's district would take about 650 people out of Platte County. Platte County gets about 1,600 people out of Goshen County. Goshen County still shares 700 with Niobrara and Weston, then the remainder is a full Goshen County house seat. So that would be the plan that does keep Laramie County out of it, I guess. So that would be another option. Just thought I'd throw it towards the committee.
I believe it's on now. Can we zoom it out just a little so everybody can see it all as it looks?
Right, so that's how the.
So that'd be
Region
the
7
plan
would
as
look.
it looks. And there could be variances within the districts, allowing clerks and counties to do some adjustment, but that would be what we're at this point after this last vote, is that map that's on the screen.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that would be another option.
Yeah, Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I have played around with Weston and Niobrara maps for a little bit, and I think this works. The only change that this really has is that Platte County has to go into Goshen County instead of Laramie County going to Goshen County. So that's the change you'd have to make, because otherwise House District 2 becomes too big, which is why, and I think in Senator Driscoll's map, it had to go take from Laramie County. But if you don't keep Platte County whole and you move it into Goshen County with the district, then you are able to keep Laramie County out of the region.
Where we at? Representative Duncan, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going back to the Driscoll map, the two primary goals of Goshen County was to correct Torrington because it was split into 3 different pieces, and then to get rid of that arm that goes down the side. So this map in particular does not fix the arm. It fixes the circle around Torrington, the 3 pieces in Torrington, but it doesn't fix the arm. So that right away is an issue. The other issue, of course, is the elephant in the room that continues to be an issue, is Laramie County creeping up into Goshen. So the next map creeping, crawling. I'm not using the word invading or conquering. They're knocking on the door, let's say that. They're progressive dinner, sorry. The other map that we just looked at, where Platte comes over into Goshen County, that's taking Fort Laramie out, and that's dividing us into 3 again as well. It's not as terrible, according to some people in the county. However, there is some issue with Fort Laramie that they would prefer to have their corridor, is what we're calling it, municipal corridor, to stick together. Fort Laramie, Lingle, Torrington, along the Highway 26. This is more palatable than the other. However, Fort Laramie feels very disenfranchised by it. But it is better. But our preferred map, again, is the one that we had adopted last meeting, was the diagonal map that just divided us into 2, this map. That's our preference. It keeps us pretty whole. It keeps us majority Goshen and a part to Niobrara. That is more along the lines of what our goal was, and meeting all of the standards that we adopted as a committee. So this is what we would prefer if we can make that happen.
Any comments? Representative Clausen.
Mr. Chairman, so Mr. Swank, if you could move the map to the top part of it. So there's one more option we haven't pursued, or we did pursue it in the beginning, but the Weston Crook split, taking both of them, between the original 6 and 7s, the Crook and Weston split, take the people they need out of Campbell County, and then drop the extra out of that region instead of out of Campbell County into the Commerce County like we'd originally planned. Dropping the Weston County portion, which would be roughly, depends on how you work it out, 500 to 2,000, into the original Region 7. I think that would be a viable option that would keep everybody, I guess, equally disliking the plan, but a reasonable compromise towards all 3 solutions. And then you don't have to duck into the Goshen County portion, the Goshen Laramie courtship stalking / invasion relationship.
Further comments? Mr. Co-Chairman.
Just feel it needs to be said. Everyone's giving Laramie County 4,000 people that we'd love to have, that are our people, to keep forcing everyone else to have to draw above deviation at 4%. And Laramie County is more than happy to share. It just seems weird that you're going to keep making 5 counties do weird shapes for the sole fact that you could make it much simpler in every other county. Just if we added, 700 to 1,400 of the Southern Goshen people in the Laramie County, and you wouldn't have odd shapes and Platte County cut into 2, which I don't know where that idea came from, but wasn't in the first 3 months of our conversation. So just reiterating that. But if everybody wants to give Laramie County 11, I guess I would ask you not to beat up on Laramie County, because again, that was not Laramie County's suggestion. It was this committee's suggestion to force us at 11. And we're more than happy to share, should you want to pursue other avenues.
Further comments? Committee questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, not a comment as much as a question. The way the maps are presented and coming across on the Zoom, I can't tell what happens to Weston County in these various plans. There appears to be a line in the middle of Weston County that I think is the current boundary, and I can't tell whether that has any significance, and which of the plans keep Weston County whole and which of them divide it. This one looks like, one's on the screen now, looks like Weston County is divided. Is that correct? And was that true of all the other ones, or?
Senator Scott, no, this plan and the last 3 that have been talked about all leave Weston whole. Whether you talk about the plan I just put up as modified, taking out the extra piece out of Goshen, or Representative Clausen's plan or the compromise with Senator Boner all leave Weston intact. Going across, Mr. Swank.
Senator or Chairman and Senator Scott, the current plan you should have, pardon me. The current plan you should have on your screen is the one adopted in the statewide map, which does split Weston County. So that would show you House District, proposed House District 1 would go down into Weston County and split it in half. The maps provided for this meeting by Senator Driscoll does keep Weston whole. However, it does show the current district boundary in black as to what it currently looks like. And then the alternative plan from last meeting did leave Weston County whole, and it goes into Niobrara. And then the other portions were the split between Goshen, Platte, and Converse on the south end. Does that help?
That helped, Mr. Chairman, that helps some.
And where was 7 at on the alternative last meeting? I don't remember exactly where it all fell. What's that? Representative Clausen.
Mr. Chairman, so we had the two options and the committee chose the option that's up right now over the other option. I guess the Weston Hole. Repeating what I already said, there's one more option we didn't look at, which was the Campbell. That is a viable option with the populations and not splitting things up too much, but it does put a minor split on the bottom of Weston, which is it's an almost whole Weston plan, but not a whole Weston plan. So that's the.
So I think we'll go ahead and take testimony. We got Weston County people, maybe some people in the room. We'll probably vote this plan up or down, depending on what it does. Then you can bring another plan if you want. We're close to the end. So would you guys like to come up? While you're coming up, we'll call Representative Nyman. He's in the waiting room.
Can you hear me?
We've got you.
Very good. I'm going to have to do it without video because my bandwidth is too narrow and it will drop this. So I will just give testimony if that's okay with the chairman and the committee.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to call and to support the plan that is currently being presented at this time by Senator Driscoll. It takes into account the lack of needing a cut out the 500 and some folks up in northern Campbell County, and actually increases the number lower, which would give Campbell County more representation and probably what you would call less disenfranchisement of those folks in that area. And the community of interest that has been outlined there that you can see on the map is very similar. Very, very much like-minded folks in that area, some oil and gas production, but by and large agricultural. Immediately adjacent to Moorcroft, which are communities that travel and work in that very same area. So it can be very like in its community of interest. And also it allows the opportunity for Weston County to be able to be whole and to move back down into the along the side of the state. They're working with Niobrara and a portion of Goshen if necessary. So just wanted to share my support for this plan, my willingness and the willingness of Cook County to work with the folks in Campbell County to provide them representation, and look forward to the decision on the committee. If you have any questions, I would be glad to take them at this time.
Questions for Representative Nyman? Thank you. Okay, we're back to commissioners. Welcome. It's not the first time I've heard from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. I hope you all had a very.
Please identify.
I'm Marty Ertman, Weston County Commissioner, and I have Ed Wagner, Weston County Commissioner, with me. So I wish you all hope you all had a Merry Christmas, and thank you for the white Christmas. We appreciate it. Again, thank you allowing us to speak today. As you all know, we have sat through several hours of testimony, ours included. As you may recall, Weston County's request has been to remain whole. the request remains. But our testimony today is while we still maintain our constituents' wishes to remain whole, we would likely to mostly comment on what we have witnessed in the past 2 meetings. From the beginning of this process, Weston County has made its intentions quite clear, and in doing so has caused quite the stir. For 2 meetings, we have heard several derivatives of deserved. We all have realized that Weston County not only has the population to warrant 0.71 of a representative, and therefore have understood that we would have to borrow population from a neighboring county to reach the desired population. But honestly, you'd think we asked to move the capital to Newcastle. At least a dozen times, that's about the time when I quit counting. I've listened to each individual county state their case, describing how they were, quote, entitled or, quote, deserved additional population in order for that particular county to be, quote, represented. I heard anywhere from 0.5 to 0.9 was worthy of representation in their county. I hear several legislators lament that how are we going to tell our constituents that we're going to be split? I've even heard a few toss around the evil word, gerrymandering in these discussions. We are incredibly appreciative of those who stand in our defense. Looking at the numbers and keeping within the guidelines that this committee set forth, keeping Weston with Niobrara together fits perfectly within those ideals. But that too was dismissed with testimony that Weston County would then hold 69% of the voting population, and theoretically, Weston would run the tables on Niobrara, to which I would gently push back. Weston County has been split, at least on the House side, with the southern half joined with our neighbors for a while. And for a while, we even had a portion of Converse, since Gore versus Carpin rewrote the rules. Yet from 1992 to his retirement in 2010, Weston County voted for a Niobrara candidate, House District 2. And even in 1996, when Weston County put forth her own candidate, the Niobrara County candidate still won. For 18 years, Weston County was well represented by a citizen of Niobrara. You said that I didn't, Senator Case. After his retirement, Weston County was then represented by a citizen of her own. And even when the representative was challenged in 2016, he's not with me, Niobrara overwhelmingly voted for the Weston County native. So history tells us that the voters choose the best candidate regardless. It's been this committee's desire to have maps presented, and Weston County did so at the last meeting, and now with Senator Driscoll. I too have tried my hand at this at last, but alas, I'm left the same as stated previously. Unlike so many others who make those maps, I am uncomfortable carving out chunks of another county, especially when the numbers allow us not to. Weston County does not claim to be owed a representative, and we never have. When we ask again, it's just to remain whole. So our citizens, all of our citizens, vote for the same person on the same ballot. 10 years ago, after being split for 20 years, a county, not Niobrara, to our south, also asked to be put whole again, and they were granted such. I understand that we sound like a broken record. But when the Wyoming Territory Legislature, yes, we were a county before the state was a state, created Weston County on March 12, 1890, took part of Crook to form it, they did not leave a perforation to be used later to divide us, considering redistricting. As you have heard several times, and you are quite very well aware of, the Wyoming Territory Legislature even set that in constitutional stone. In closing, I'd like to leave you with a couple of quotes that I thought were quite applicable. First of all, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. On June 12, 2015, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Redistricting Commission in Arizona. In the court's majority opinion, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote, and I'm speaking of Arizona, but could fit here. The people of Arizona turned to the initiative to curb the practice of gerrymandering and thereby to ensure that members of Congress would have an habitual recollection of their dependence on the people. In so acting, Arizona voters sought to restore the core principles of Republican government, little r. Namely, that the voters choose their representatives, not the other way around. The election clause does not hinder that endeavor. And I'm not sure, here's my closing quote. I watched Yellowstone. I don't know if you're all a fan of Yellowstone and John Dutton. But the last Sunday, it was stated as he was trying to teach the little castaway how to ride. And the little castaway said, "This isn't fair." He said to him, "Let me tell you what fair means. Fair means that one side got what they wanted in a way the other side can't complain about. There's not always such thing as fair." In the next few months, this committee can come close. I appreciate you, everything that you do, and I appreciate you allowing us to speak. Thank you. Stand for any questions.
Mr. Wagner, would you like to go and then we'll do your questions together if we have them?
Pardon me?
Testify and then we'll do questions together.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I've heard discussion on, keeping communities' interests together. The way our current county is currently split and the way some of these maps propose it, we have a small community of the town of Upton and Newcastle. The line divides between those two towns. So the two communities can't even vote for the same representative. We're represented by different people. And, the communities' interests are clearly divided in our county.
Thank you. Questions for Commissioner Erdman or Commissioner Wagner? Representative Claus.
Commissioners, and either one of you can answer this, but we've looked at this several different ways and through the having two separate regions of 6-7. Basically, there are two camps, one with 49,000 and one with 7,500. You can look at this through several lenses, and I've tried to look at it as many different ways as you can. We're in I would call the sandwich region, or the region 7, and we've been trying to come up with a compromise for basically two hard lines that one is a giant, and then we are sandwiched between two giants. You can look at this as kids with 10 candy bars that need 11, one with 3/4 that needs to borrow a half from a 5. I've tried to look through it simply through lenses of fairness, but there's the single option we haven't looked at in all these options that nobody likes is a Weston County that drops a small population into the Niobrara Region 7. When we originally went with the Region 6-7 idea, knowing we'd have to drop between 5 and 2,000 people from the Region 7 or Region 6 into the Region 7. We originally took that out of Campbell because of course they had the most candy bars, but in this scenario at the end of the trail, those candy bars are votes. And we have a scenario where we haven't looked at, that we could make an almost whole Weston, where we drop that extra population out of the West. It's the one scenario we looked at originally, but we didn't look at the whole thing. It keeps Campbell from a 3-way split. I'm saying in all of these compromises that nobody likes, in the two hard lines between a whole Weston and a whole Campbell, and that's what we're staring at. The whole Campbell scenario without Crook taking Campbell, of course, is what Campbell would like. This was a split the baby attempt. There's one more split the baby attempt. Would you guys be open to that conversation, I guess, of taking the 2,500 to 3,000 out of the Campbell and then dropping the extra regional into the Niobrara Goshen Converse district, if that was a direction we could come up with what I call it an almost whole Weston?
Thoughts on that, commissioners?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Clausen. I would not be opposed to looking into that and taking it back to our constituents. It's just seeing it on a map would help more, but I think it'd be something we could palate, could accept.
Okay. Further questions to the commissioners? Not seeing any. Thank you for coming down again today. It's good seeing you every couple weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Other public comment on the plan before us in the audience? Sir, come on down. We'll even let you bring your county clerk with you. Welcome, Commissioner Wade. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Pat Wade. I'm Chairman of the Niobrara County Commissioners. And this plan that we're looking at right here, I'm going to make the same point I did at the last meeting. This current plan gives Weston County 68.35% of the population, which I will say it gains Goshen and Niobrara County about 0.5% over the one that was voted down at the last meeting. So we gained a little ground. But this really does put us at a very great disadvantage. And it splits Goshen County in 3 places. And so those are tough things. And as much as anything, I guess I'm not here just speaking on behalf of Niobrara County. I'm going to speak on behalf of every small populated county in the state. You know, we're getting pushed around here in this part of the world in eastern Wyoming. We're getting crowded from the north and we're getting crowded from the south. And both those counties are wanting a little more than what they have. And it's coming at the expense of the smaller populated counties. Now, if it was this way in the United States, where would that leave the state of Wyoming? You know, we are so fortunate the way we are to have the voice we do because the US Constitution allows us 2 senators, which gives us equal traction with every other state. With this, if we were looking at this plan, if the state of Wyoming was looking to get pushed around like this, I would hope everyone in this room and that's attending this meeting would roll up and fight that. And I think they would. But that's where we are as small counties. We're in the same position as the state of Wyoming is in the United States. So that's where that's the point I want to make. It is a way that the smaller populated counties can still have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Wade, I probably need some glasses because I can't read your name tag. What is, so I get that you don't necessarily want this plan, but what would be the ideal plan for Niobrara if you could draw the map for what the district that Niobrara sits in looks like?
You know, we worked hard in Region 7, crafting plans. And I think we had it pretty well done. And to be honest, I had kind of quit paying attention because we had done what the committee had asked and we thought we'd done our job until the meeting earlier in December. And then Region 7, to me, got somewhat crowded in on from both the region to the north and the region to the south. And it's due, to me, I think, a lot with those 2 big counties wanting to expand over and above what their population allows.
Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you to follow up. So can I say that you are in favor of what we voted on last time? Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I'm not following protocol here. I think I'm very much more in favor of that than this current plan. As I sit here and listen to Representative Clausen's plan, that seems more interesting to me. Of course, I think maybe it was Representative Clausen said earlier that things become more palatable when it's some other county that has to make the decision. But, you know we're going to be put in with someone. We just kind of want to be put in on equal ground.
I guess I've got, what's equal ground when you're at 2,500? I guess I'm trying to figure out who you're with, that you're not small, is if you're with Weston, it's basically two of you in a piece of another county. If you're south, you're still the minority. I understand that you want to be south. That's really clear. And it's my apologies to you the way it falls. This deal, when you have to do it statewide as opposed to represent exactly where you're at, is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Because I called Niobrara County people I used to represent down there, and it was pretty clear they'd rather be north. I'm going to preface everything I've done with saying that, and I fully understand the deal. But when we start putting the state plan together, it's tough. And Niobrara and Hot Springs are both at about a quarter of a rep, and so there's no way, it doesn't matter who you combine you with, unless you cut 3 or 4 counties up, that you have equal standing. You're a minority anyway we do it. So the perception that it's unfair that you get put with a second county that you've only got a quarter of the vote still doesn't hold. It just goes the other direction is all the way I see it. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, getting back to the way we had things put together in Region 7, we had a plan where we had the northern end of Goshen County, Niobrara County, and the eastern part of Converse County, and things were set up laying fairly consistently. We know we're going to be at a disadvantage, and we're used to being the little guy. It's just the way it is until we figure out a way to add more people, and which, quite frankly, in Niobrara County isn't always that popular of a trend. But we just want to be able, to have a voice in this. As this plan currently is, a representative that was elected out of Weston County wouldn't even need to ever pass through Niobrara County other than to come down here. They wouldn't need our votes. They wouldn't need Goshen County's votes. The part we realize really well in Niobrara County that representation is as good or as bad as the person that is elected, because we've had good representation by a representative from Weston County for a lot of years. And we don't have a problem with that. We just kind of want to stay in here where we feel like we've got a voice, and that people need to be paying attention somewhat to us to hold their position.
Further comments? Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Becky Freeman, the Niobrara County Clerk, and I would like to reiterate my stance from the December 14th meeting. Plan 5, which has the diagonal split in Goshen County, all of Niobrara, and the southern part of Weston, has more palatable numbers. Weston would have 4598, Goshen 2598, Niobrara 2467. We understand we're never going to be individual. We understand our numbers are small, and we're not trying to be difficult with our neighbors. We can work with our neighbors well. As Chairman Wade said, we just would like to have a fair shot and a little more palatable with this Plan 5 that was discussed during the December 14th meeting. I would also like to see Representative Clausen's idea for another plan that would share Weston, Niobrara, Converse, and part of Goshen, or just Converse. And as Chairman Wade said, when we initially began this process, the numbers between Goshen, Niobrara, and Converse were similar. So I just wanted to make my point clear in case it wasn't the last time I spoke, that we are in favor of Plan 5. And I would stand for any questions. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Freeman? As usual, you guys do a good job speaking for yourselves. Thank you. further questions for the committee? Do we have anyone else to testify either online or? So Representative Hallinan, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. Well, I was just going to comment on some of the other comments that I heard other speakers made during this committee. I think the main item that you've discussed is the item of the population of these communities. And Campbell County has 4.9 representatives by population. And they also have a community of interest. The people in Campbell County shop in Gillette or shop in Wright, but they don't shop in Douglas and they don't shop in Sundance or Moorcroft. So we have a community of interest in Campbell County. And then the county lines. Campbell County has a representative of our people in our county government. And we also have our many county establishments around the county that are shared by the people of Campbell County. We have a community of interest. We have the community of the county lines, and we also have the population. 4.9 representatives are due to Campbell County. So I would say that we also need to look at this map that we have that's before us. The map shows that we have given a part of Campbell County to Crook County. And I don't think that is justified by the fact of our 4.9 reps. I think we would be justified in having 5 reps. And we don't need to invade Converse County. If we take this part of Campbell County that goes into Crook County and put that back into Crook County, which would extend into Weston County, then Converse County would be able to have that area back. And we would simply be in the borders of Campbell County. And I think that's the appropriate decision for this committee to make, that Campbell County would be 5 representatives that are part of Crook County, which is now represented by Representative Barlow. And he has said in the past that it's very difficult to represent these people in Converse County as a distance from where he lives in Campbell County. So I think it would be appropriate that Converse County would be able to have their part of their county back. And Crook County would move into Weston County, which it now has. So with that in mind, I think it needs to be 5 representatives from Campbell County, and Crook County needs to remain split. They have a community of interest, I agree. But it's unfortunate they live in part of the state that would be best served by dividing that county and looking at returning Campbell County to the 5 representatives that they're entitled to by the population. So with that in mind, Mr. Chairman, I would be against this motion of Senator Driscoll to reconsider the bill or the concepts that you already have in mind for that were formed by Senator that were on the table before, that showed Crook County and Crook County going into Weston County, and then the Campbell County would remove itself from Converse County, and Crook County would stay where it is now, part of District 1. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't think Crook County's going anywhere. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, I never heard Representative Barlow say that anybody from Commerce County was hard to represent. Certainly can speak for himself. And just question for Representative Hallinan. I appreciate your thinking about the counties immediately around your border, and that's an improvement, I think, from some of the previous discussion. I'm wondering, just take it one step further, and if Commerce County has a full House seat, we have at least about 4,000 people left. Presumably, we'd stay whole there, and then go into Platte County, which would cut Platte County right in half. I mean, exactly in half, and presumably another 3,000 people out of Platte County would go south into Laramie County under the current plan. I'm just wondering, have you talked to any of your colleagues from Eastern Wyoming, maybe Representative Haraldson, as to, whether he supports this idea that Campbell has to remain absolutely whole, given the ripple effect throughout Eastern Wyoming that affects other lawmakers that you may find common cause with?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would say that I have not spoken with Representative Haraldson, but this part of Converse County could be considered for part of the county that, or part of the district that is formed along with Niobrara and Southern Weston County. And that would possibly give you another option in dealing with that district down there. So I haven't really talked to anybody about this, but I think this is a complicated issue that you have before you, and I'll leave it up to you guys to solve that. But I think part of the solution is to hold Campbell County as 5 districts. And that is the part of this issue that I have really addressed. I haven't addressed all the parts of the statewide map that you have looked at, and I respect your judgments on this. At the same time, I would hold forth that the people of Campbell County would like to have their districts represented by 5 people, 5 representatives that work together for the benefits of Campbell County. So with that in mind, I really don't have an answer to your question, Senator, but I would still hold forth that that is for you guys to decide how to work this out. And if you don't go with 5 representatives for Campbell County, there are ways of dealing with that also that we could look at. But I think that that is the best way that we can deal with these issues that you brought up: the population, the community of interest, and the county lines. So with that said, I complete my testimony, Mr. Chairman. I would be able for any more comments or questions, though.
Mr. Chairman, just a question for the good doctor. Doctor, so Campbell County, the way you provide the map, if we went with a complete Campbell County, would be 5. Would you see an advantage to having those 5 and interest in 2? Because I think there's a way to have almost an interest in 7 representatives that would have similar interests in similar communities of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would say that for Senator or Representative Clausen, that I don't think that this would be a way for us to gain more representation. I think we need to have representation that represents our numbers. And I don't think that we need to take, say, 2,000 and put them into Crook County and 2,000 and put them into Weston County. I don't think that would be beneficial to our county. And I think that would be a loss. That would be a loss for our county. And we would have an excess number of people that would be representative by 4 representatives. I think I've looked at that on my on the paper that I sent you guys before. That would leave about 3,000 people that would be excess for Campbell County, and that would put us over the 8% above the allowed for the actual usual number of people that are allowed per district. So that would put us out of our proper number in our districts that we would have remaining. So I think that would be a mistake for us to do that. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Further questions for Representative Hallinan? Thank you. Speaker Barlow, would you like to opine on this? I'm feeling a little bit like a fire hydrant right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate your work. In the interim of holidays, the end of the year, I think I'm going to start at a different place than my colleague from Campbell County did. He started off with where the numbers start with. I think I'm going to start with where the committee actually has the map drawn now, or the compiled map right now, and that's with Campbell sharing 500, approximately 500 people with Crook still having the continued share with Weston, and then the continued share partnership with Converse. The last meeting, I think the motion was work this out. And I've actually gone back and listened to the motion so I could try to understand it. And my view, when I made the comments at the end of the last meeting about where we stood and working it out, was the priority would be to remove that 500 that that comes out of Campbell County and goes with that Weston Crook seat. I did make that case to my point people from regions 6 and 7. And I asked them to, look for a way to do that. Now, it's also my understanding that there were some maps submitted by Campbell County, by the Campbell County Clerk's Office. They did not make it in time for the deadline of the 21st when they were submitted to the committee, or to the, LSO. So I think Campbell County has come to the table asking for at least an adjustment of that portion out of Campbell County. It does maintain the continued partnership with Converse County. Now, part of the discussion we heard earlier today was about disruptions and et cetera, and consistency and representation. One of the things that has been certainly on the minds of Campbell County, and my colleague, Dr. Hallinan, and other elected members in Campbell County, has been as little disruption to the current districts as possible. So taking the 500 out of the northern end of Campbell County, leaving the share with Converse County, certainly follows that principle that at least I have heard in my own community. That's not to say that Dr. Hallinan doesn't have a point, Representative Hallinan doesn't have a point, that there is a discussion to be had there with Campbell County staying whole. However, all that to be said, the discussion between House District 6 and 7, and I'm not sure if there's actually a motion on the table. I don't believe there's a motion on the table. But when Chairman Driscoll laid out the plan before you, it was to eliminate the share between Laramie and Goshen County. Now, the challenge with that is, and then going back to the starting point of District 6 and 7, is District 6 in and of itself was over deviation. Period. 5.8. So the only way for us to share, it can't go into what, or not palatable to go into into our neighbors to the west, Sheridan and Johnson, was to go south. And that traditional, or I shouldn't say traditional, the current district, House District 3, which is a share between Campbell and Converse, helps fulfill us, i.e. District 6, losing some of that population, or sending some of that population. So I don't know where the starting point is for this committee. I think that the committee map that was adopted at the last meeting, this is an amendment, a significant amendment to that map. And I'm not saying it's an incorrect amendment, but there were other steps that we were asked to accommodate, I think, also. And I would like to see a representation of that and how it affects the rest of the district. On the bottom end of these two districts, and I don't mean that they're less important, is the question between the 5.5 or 10.5, seats in Laramie County and the population Southern Goshen County. That is a discussion this committee has to come up with. I agree with Chairman Zwanitzer that it doesn't make sense to me for equitable representation. This is not quality of representation. This is equitable representation of citizens, individual citizens, one person, one vote, that there is not a partnership also between Goshen and Laramie County. This is about partnerships, and maybe the status quo, continuing partnerships, is where, at least on the western side of the state, the eastern side of the state, we should stay. Doesn't mean that this plan can't be, continue to be modified or worked with. The current amendment to the committee's plan, but I think there needs to be more discussion. Campbell County, I, as a member of the Campbell County delegation, continue to be open to those discussions and understand what the implications of those are. And I thank you for your time and be glad to stand for any questions.
Questions for Speaker Barlow? Representative Claus.
Speaker Barlow, so our districts currently have meshed together, and I guess over the years found it a huge advantage to have, at times there was 2 senior members to I guess help out a junior member in the legislature, and I found it to be a huge advantage in Converse. And if you look at the current maps, the Converse split 2 ways as it continues. But do you see that being helpful if we came up with a third map that would provide leadership from senior members to junior members in some of these other counties?
Speaker Barlow.
Mr. Chairman, maybe it's because I've now reached the age of receiving my AARP card that Representative Clausen is asking me this question. And so I do think there's value in partnerships, and they can sometimes be across county lines. They don't all have to be ideologic. They can be, community based or regional based or industry based. The only map that I guess I would like to see is one that takes the 5. I mean, based on the current map, the one we don't have before us is a map that takes the 500 out of northern Campbell County with a share to Crook and adjusts the map downward. As I said in every meeting that I've attended with this committee, is Campbell County at 4505 can maintain 5 seats within its county lines. If we need to have a partnership, I think there's an openness to having that partnership, but what I don't want Campbell County to get is shifted 4 or 5% up in deviation to accommodate all those other interests. And that's what occurs with 6 and 7 kept whole, kept within themselves, if we're not cautious. If we share some population, if there's a partnership with Goshen and Laramie, there's a significant alleviation. And to the point that was made earlier, also by Representative Clausen, about there's other ideas, and Senator Boner has said this in other times, let's see the maps. I just gave my input based on the current map the committee has to my colleagues on the committee, and that was to take that 500 out of the northern part of Campbell County. And I haven't seen that compilation yet for the entire eastern side. I apologize, it wasn't maybe submitted in a timely manner. And I continue to believe in partnerships. And while I don't know that the quality of representation that Converse County has had for the last 10 years with a shared legislator from Campbell County has been good, I do think it has been reasonably equitable as far as what the voters had a say in. Certainly to the point about Niobrara County having a minority position, significant minority position in a potential Weston split map, that's exactly what Converse County has been living with for 10 years. And certainly it's been my hope that I've been able to give them the valuable representation. That's up to those voters to decide that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions from Mr. Speaker? Thank you. Do we have anyone else online? Anyone else in the audience? Public testimony's closed. Committee, what's your pleasure? Not sure we even got a motion, so.
Yeah, Mr. Co-Chairman, if I guess I need a better map or maybe a reiteration of the explanation of what the question before us is. I know it's ultimately keeping Weston whole, but if we could go back to the basics of what that looks like and maybe numbers of what goes between counties, because conceptually, I think we can still do this conceptually if we agree on the number of people, constituents, shall we say, which need to go to a different district, and then we would let those counties draw, I still think that's the best option, but the counties draw within based on a certain numerical formula of how many constituents they need to share with another county. I don't
Swink
know if
has,
we have
that's
that.
like 2,200 in Crook, 2,400 in Weston, is it?
If you could give that to us, Mr. Swink. if you have.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the exact number between Crook and Campbell in this plan, and let me share just so we can,
Oh, but to meet deviation, it's 2,000, what?
pardon me, Chairman?
If Crook and Weston, each one of them to meet deviation, how many do they have to have added to them? I think that's what you're asking, right, Mr. Co-Chairman?
I kind of generally know that. I just want to make sure I have an understanding of how many are moving from a county to a different county, a different district. It's
Mr. Chairman, I put up the current map that's under discussion, Driscoll submission. The share between Crook and Campbell here is, I think it's between 2,000, 2,500. I don't know the exact number. The share between Commerce, that one I actually do not recall. I apologize. I have to pull it up on my system. The share between Goshen and what would be proposed House District 2 is between roughly 680 or so. It's a high 600s. And then the share between Southern Goshen and Laramie County is about 1,900 with 600 from the prison.
Mr. Chairman?
Representative Greer.
Yeah, with that, I guess you're calling that the Driscoll submission, is that right? So with that, what is the highest deviation? What's the highest percentage of any house district in that map? I unfortunately wasn't able to see that.
Mr. Chairman, the highest deviation is House District 6, which would be the full House district in Converse County at 4.98%. And the lowest deviation would be House District 1, which would be the Crook Weston District or Crook Campbell District at negative 4.42%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And that one can change easily because you can either add or subtract. That's just one where you're going into it. So. What? Stop for lunch? What did you? I think we can if we take an early lunch break. I think, Mr. Representative Clausen, can you do that? So is the committee amicable to taking an hour lunch, half hour early?
An hour and a half lunch, a half hour.
Sure.
Whatever you want.
And if we could just flesh out the conceptual motion, I don't think Representative Clausen wants to take lunch and do it, but
Objections committee? We'll adjourn till 1 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Well, one way or the other, we'll come back and we'll get through this fairly quickly at 1.